I've noticed how things have changed from the early days in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. Uh, these days, we like to ignore the truth because we want to be pleasant to people. But then you've got the opposite today. You've got these lunatics around who will turn to violence at a moment's notice over nothing. And I notice people don't like to admit that fat people should go on a diet. And fat people always say it's not because they're greedy, it's simply because they've got a bad metabolism. But this is nonsense, because in my days there was no fat people. And it's all happened since the 70s when you get all these burger places, these burger chains. Now, I'm 70 years of age, and I found if I just have, let's say, say I'm on a diet, I'm eating nothing, and suddenly I decide to have a crisp sandwich between two slices of medium cut bread. So it's not that much bread at all. And then I weigh myself afterwards. I put on weight. Now the reason why I stay slim is because I do control my eating habits. Not only do I control my eating habits, but I'm working out 4 times a week. And it's painful. It really is. As I say, there's no gain without pain unless you, if you really want to take advantage of working out. No, it's all about self-control, and people never want to admit the truth. A good example is my girlfriend. I might have told this story in another one of my movies. We jumped into a parked car. She always parked it underground in one of these concrete places. There's a concrete pillow right next to the car. Well, she's a very quick person when she's in a car. She's either going fast forward or a foot full on the brake. Anyway, I'm chatting away to her. She slammed it into gear, put her foot down on the accelerator and expected to come straight out of this parking lot. Oh no, sorry, what was it? Let me think. Yeah, she expected to come straight out of the parking lot. Instead, she didn't realise that she had a full lock on the steering. So the wheel was facing that way, towards the pillar. And it went straight into this pillar. And just a reminder, if you like my videos, please give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Concrete pillar. She was so angry. She turned to me and said, "That's your fault." I said, "My fault? I wasn't driving." She said, "Yeah, but you're talking to me." Well, this is nonsense. We always talk to each other when she's driving or I'm driving. But this is typical of humans. They always make an excuse. They don't like to admit that it's their fault, that there's something wrong with their ability. They don't like their own ability being questioned. So the same with these people who eat too much. They make all the excuses you can think of. My mother died and I've been worrying about it, and yet they ignore the fact that they was fat before their mother died. And then I saw that girl who's a transsexual, a very good looking girl actually, on YouTube, and she was stuffing this. She said, "I can't take it anymore, I'm so fed up." She grabbed this sandwich and was stuffing it in her face. I couldn't believe it. Oh dear me. I know that people have eating habits, but to stuff this thing in her face the way she did was quite comical. But she was blaming it on, I'm not quite sure what she was blaming it. Oh, I must tell you this. It certainly wasn't on her. They don't like to say, "I haven't got the strength to hold back." And one of the reasons why people haven't got the strength to hold back is that the food that they eat is not real food. We're the only animal that cooks all the goodness out of the food. All the others eat it raw. Now, if these people had to eat raw meats and raw fish and tasty, well, not so tasty vegetables, but tasty fruit, they wouldn't be able to live on that because it's not tasty enough for them. They want all these sugary things, cakes and pies, and sugar's in everything today. So instead of admitting that they just haven't got the strength to hold back, they will blame it on their metabolism or on the person who's giving them food, because they're so fat, some of these people, they can't get out of that bed, so they rely on their loved one to bring them the food. I remember one fella, he was on a diet and he managed to get right down to what I look like now, and before he really was heavy, and I was amazed. But his excuse is, when he went back on the diet, his excuse was that he thought that he would just try to see if he could eat, I can't remember, maybe pies or something, I don't know, some sort of sweet thing. And as soon as he started eating, he couldn't stop. But the truth is, he didn't think that at all. At that moment, his strength, which held him up until that time from eating sweets, just left him, and he gave up basically and went back. He decided at that moment he's going to go back to eating, but he didn't want to admit that he's going back to eating. He wanted to make an excuse by saying that he was just going to see if he could eat without being greedy. And now, of course, he's fat as a pig, well, fatter than a pig, in fact. I was, when I realised that sugar was causing me to get overweight, I was just over 86 kilo, 86.5 kilo when I should have been, which is about 13.5 stone, just over, I think. I should have been 11 stone, which is 70 kilo. So I went on a diet and I lost all those kilos, 3.5 kilo, whatever, within 2 months. I think it was 2 months, 2 or 3 months at the most. But I noticed when I was back at 11 stone, which I hadn't been since I was 40 years of age, well, 39 years of age actually, I noticed that I looked really skinny. I could see my bones. I couldn't understand it at the time, but recently I've come to terms with the fact that as you get older, you must put on some sort of, you get bigger slightly. And if you look at the boxers, they do get bigger. They start off at lightweight, don't they? And then they go to middleweight, and then they go to heavyweight because they're getting bigger, but they're still working out, these boxers. So that's what's happened to me. So now I've decided I'm not, I can't be 11 stone anymore. I've got to be 11 and a half. But still, to stay at 11 and a half at my age, you've really got to control your diet, control your eating. And after eating very little for 2 years, well, eating no sugar at all for 2 years, just normal food, I managed to stay at 11 stone. But then I thought one day, why should I go on like this? Because I know I like sugary things. Why can't I have some cake when I want to? So I thought, well, eat what you want, and when you go up too far, let's say a stone, you'll go on a crash diet again. So I did. That's what I was doing for a few months now, going on a crash diet every time I go up. And I go up very quickly, of course. As soon as I start eating, I spend about a week eating cakes and biscuits and things, and then I have to go on a crash diet for 2 weeks, where I eat very, very little, hardly anything. So let's, all these fat people, stop making excuses. Admit that you just can't control yourself, because that's what it is. Lack of self-control. And everyone around them should start pointing out, listen, you're going to die early, you look bloody awful. Stop eating all that junk food, because that's what it is. It's a junk food which has lots of sugar in. They put sugar in the beef burgers as well. Why do you think these chain stores sell so many beef burgers? And the people will tell you, I know I'm not supposed to eat it, but it tastes so good. They don't realise there's the sugar in there. Well, I've hoped you learned something from this. And who remembers Katie Hopkins? She must be one of my favourite speakers, always has something to say. Very interesting woman. But do you remember when she deliberately ate too much food? And after becoming fat, which surprised me, because I've always seen her as a slim woman, she went on a crash diet and lost it all, to prove that fat people are fat because they overeat. And it's true. When you think about it, just look at what fat people eat, the amount of food they eat, huge amounts. And they even get up in the middle of the night to eat as well. Oh, no. I mean, we wouldn't even allow our children to become like that, would we? Well, actually, we do. You see fat kids everywhere, and the parents don't give a damn. People have started to accept fat as being normal. They don't see it as wrong anymore because it's been going for so long now, since the 70s. But really, we have to stop it, and we can stop it with our children, and we can stop it with our friends who are overweight by telling them, hey, listen, go on a diet, you're too bloody fat. Do it for their sake. Stop being so bloody pleasant.